The rain hammered against the windows of Sacred Heart Academy as I rushed down the empty corridor, my violin case banging against my leg. I was late for orchestra practice again, and Mrs. Henderson would have my head. But then I saw her dot. She stood at the end of the hallway, soaked from head to toe, water dripping from her leather jacket onto the polished floor. Her dark hair climbed to her face, and she was staring at a piece of paper in her hand like it held the secrets of the universe. "Are you lost?" I called out, my voice echoing off the stone walls. She looked up, and I swear time stopped. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and intense, and when they met mine, something shifted in my chest. "I'm looking for the administrative office," she said, her voice low and rough around the edges. "I'm supposed to start here today. You're the new transfer student?" I realized. "Everyone's been talking about you." "I'm Meyer, Riley." She didn't smile, but something flickered in those gray eyes. "Can you point me in the right direction?" I should have just given her directions. I should have gone to practice. Instead, I said, "I'll take you there." That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was the best decision I ever made. I still can't decide. 3 weeks passed before we spoke again. Riley kept to herself, sitting alone in the cafeteria, walking the halls with her headphones on, always present, but somehow apart from everyone else. I watched her more than I should have, noticed things I shouldn't have cared about: the way she tapped her pen against her notebook in calculus, how she always ordered black coffee from the campus cafe, the small scar above her left eyebrow. It was a Thursday afternoon in late September when everything changed. I found her in the music room, sitting at the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys, but not pressing down. "I didn't know you played," I said from the doorway. She jumped, pulling her hands back like the piano had burnt her. "I don't." "Not anymore." "Why not?" Riley was quiet for a long moment, and I thought she might tell me to leave. Instead, she said, "My mom was a pianist. She died 2 years ago. I haven't been able to play since." I walked over and sat beside her on the bench, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. "Play something for her." "I can't." "Then I'll play, and you can listen." I placed my hands on the keys and began to play Claire de Lune, letting the notes fill the silence between us. When I finished, there were tears streaming down Riley's face. That was her favorite, she whispered. That's when she took my hand, just held it, her fingers warm against mine, and neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Something unspoken passed between us in that moment, something that both terrified and thrilled me. From that day forward, we were inseparable. October painted the campus in shades of amber and gold, and Riley and I found ourselves spending every spare moment together. We'd study in the library until it closed, sit on the roof of the science building and watch the stars, share secrets and whispered conversations that lasted until dawn. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Riley said one night as we lay on the football field, staring up at the infinite sky. "I've known I was gay since I was 13, I admitted, but my parents are traditional, religious. I've never told them. I don't think I ever can." Riley turned her head to look at me. "Do they suspect?" "Maybe, probably. My mom keeps setting me up with boys from church, and I keep finding excuses. It's exhausting, living a lie." I paused. "What about you? Have you told your family?" "My dad knows. He caught me kissing my girlfriend back in Portland. That's why we moved here, so I could have a fresh start away from bad influences." Her laugh was bitter. "He sent me to an all-girls Catholic school to keep me away from girls." The irony isn't lost on me. Were you in love with her? Your ex? I thought I was. But now, she reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers lingering against my cheek. Now I know I had no idea what love felt like. My heart was thundering so loud I was sure she could hear it. "Riley, I'm falling for you, Meyer. I've been falling since that first day in the hallway. I should have pulled away. I should have thought about the consequences, about our families, about the school's policies. Instead, I leaned in and kissed her. Her lips were soft and tasted like the peppermint gum she always chewed. She kissed me back with a gentleness that made my chest ache. her hand cradling my face like I was something precious. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. We can't tell anyone, I said, reality crashing back in. I know, this is dangerous. If they find out. I know, Meyer, Riley pressed her forehead against mine, but I don't care. I'd risk everything for this. For you, the next 3 months were the most incredible and terrifying of my life. We became masters of deception, stealing moments whenever we could. Quick kisses in empty classrooms, hands held under the cafeteria table, coded text messages that looked innocent but meant everything. We made up a fictional boyfriend for me, Michael, a college freshman I supposedly met at a youth group event. My parents were thrilled. Riley's dad bought the story too, relieved that his daughter seemed to have left her phase behind and made a nice, normal friend. If only they knew the truth. We'd meet at midnight in the old gardening shed behind the gymnasium, the only place on campus without security cameras. Riley brought blankets and battery-operated lights, turned it into our sanctuary. We'd talk for hours, kiss until our lips were swollen, dream about a future where we didn't have to hide. When we graduate, we could move to New York, Riley said one night, tracing patterns on my palm. Get a tiny apartment in Brooklyn. You could study at Juilliard, and I could go to art school. We could be ourselves there, be together. That's 18 months away. How are we supposed to keep this secret for 18 months? The same way we've kept it for 3. Carefully, she kissed my knuckles. You're worth it, Meyer, 1,000 times over. But secrets have a way of unraveling. It started with something small. Madison Chen, my supposed best friend since freshman year, noticed that I wasn't checking my phone when Michael texted anymore. She noticed that I smiled differently, glowed differently, disappeared at odd hours without explanation. There's something you're not telling me, she said one day in chemistry lab. Is everything okay with you and Michael? Everything's fine, I lied. Then why haven't I met him yet? Why don't you talk about him anymore? We're just private people. Madison's eyes narrowed. Or maybe he doesn't exist. My blood ran cold. That's ridiculous, is it? Because I'm starting to think you made him up to hide something else. Or someone else. I laughed it off, changed the subject. But the damage was done. Madison started watching me more closely, and Madison was observant. 2 weeks later, she followed me. I didn't notice her behind me as I made my way to the gardening shed at midnight. Didn't hear her footsteps on the gravel path. I was too focused on getting to Riley, on losing myself in her arms for a few precious hours. I opened the shed door, stepped inside where Riley was waiting, and kissed her like I always did, deep and desperate and full of longing. Then I heard it, a sharp intake of breath from outside. I pulled away from Riley, my heart stopping. Did you hear that? Hear what? I rushed to the door and flung it open. Madison stood there, her phone in her hand, her expression a mixture of shock and something else, something that looked like betrayal. Madison, you're gay, she said, her voice flat. You and Riley, this whole time. Please, I begged, stepping toward her. Please don't tell anyone. You don't understand. Don't understand what? That you've been lying to me for months. That everything about Michael was fake. That you've been sneaking around behind everyone's backs. Riley appeared in the doorway behind me. We didn't mean to hurt anyone, but you did hurt someone. You hurt Maya's parents, who think their daughter is in a nice Christian relationship. You hurt your dad, Riley, who thinks you've changed. And you hurt me, Meyer, your best friend, who you couldn't trust with the truth. I wanted to tell you, I said, tears streaming down my face. But I was scared. Of what? That I'd judge you? I've known you for 3 years. Did you really think I'd? She stopped, shook her head. You know what? It doesn't matter, because I'm not the one you need to worry about. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Sister Catherine was doing rounds. She saw me following you. She's right behind me. Sister Catherine, the school's disciplinary director, stood on the path with her flashlight, her face a mask of cold disappointment. Behind her were 2 security guards. Miss Rodriguez, Miss Chen, I think you both need to come with me. Now, The next few hours were a blur. Phone calls to our parents, meetings with the school board, Sister Catherine's office, with its crosses on the wall, and the smell of old books and judgment. Riley's dad arrived first. I could hear him shouting through the walls. "I sent you here to fix you, to cure you of this sickness. And instead, you corrupt another girl. Dad, please, don't say another word. Pack your things. We're leaving tonight." My parents arrived next, and the look on my mother's face when Sister Catherine explained the situation was like a knife to my heart. She didn't yell. She just stared at me like I was a stranger. Her hand clutched around the cross at her throat. "How could you?" she whispered. "We raised you in the church. We taught you right from wrong. How could you choose this sin? It's not a choice, Mom. It's who I am." "Then you're not the daughter I thought I had." Those words shattered me more than anything else could have. They separated us immediately. Riley was withdrawn from Sacred Heart that night. Her father was transferring her to a boarding school in Idaho, somewhere strict and isolated where she'd be properly supervised. I was allowed to stay, but under strict conditions. Mandatory counseling with the school chaplain, my parents monitoring my phone and computer, no unsupervised activities, no more music room privileges. They took everything except my violin. The last time I saw Riley was through the window of her father's car. Our eyes met for one brief moment before they drove away, and I saw my own heartbreak reflected in her gray eyes. She was gone. Madison tried to apologize in the following weeks. "I didn't know they'd separate you. I didn't think they'd be so harsh. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. You thought you'd expose us. Congratulations. You succeeded. Maya, I'm sorry. I was hurt that you didn't trust me, and I reacted badly, but I never wanted this. But this is what happened, and now Riley's gone, and I don't even know if I'll ever see her again." The truth was worse than not knowing. I found out through Riley's former roommate that the boarding school in Idaho was really a conversion therapy camp, a place where they tried to pray the gay way, break you down, remake you into someone acceptable. The thought of Riley in that place, scared and alone, was unbearable. 10 months passed. 10 months of pretending to be cured, of sitting through counseling sessions where I nodded and said what they wanted to hear while dying inside. 10 months of my parents watching me like a prisoner, treating me with a mixture of disappointment and wariness. 10 months without Riley. I tried to find her online, but her social media was gone. I sent letters to the Idaho address, but they came back unopened. It was like she disappeared from the face of the earth. I threw myself into music, practicing until my fingers bled, because it was the only thing that made me feel anything other than numb. I auditioned for Juilliard anyway. Even though the dream of going there with Riley was ashes now, I got in when the acceptance letter arrived. My parents set me down for a conversation. "We've been talking to Father Michael," my mother said. "He thinks that if you've truly committed to changing, to living a godly life, then New York might actually be good for you. A fresh start. As long as you promise to stay on the right path." My father added, "No more mistakes, I promised." Another lie to add to the pile, but it was my ticket to freedom. So I swallowed my pride and said what they needed to hear. Move in day at Juilliard was chaos. Students everywhere, parents helping carry boxes, the energy of new beginnings crackling in the air. My parents stayed for 2 hours, giving me warnings and reminders and restrictions. Before finally leaving, I was free. My roommate arrived that evening. Ava was a violist from California with pink hair and pronouns sewn onto her backpack. We clicked immediately. "My girlfriend's studying at Columbia," she told me as we unpacked. "We're planning to get an apartment together next year. Are you seeing anyone?" I hesitated, then decided that maybe, finally, I could tell someone the truth. I was, but we got separated. I don't know where she is now. That's awful. Have you tried looking for her? Everywhere. It's like she vanished. What's her name? Maybe I can help. I'm really good at internet stalking. Riley Chen. She was sent to a conversion camp in Idaho. But I don't know if she's still there or... Wait. Ava grabbed her laptop. Riley Chen, about our age, dark hair, gray eyes. My heart stopped. Yes, why? Ava turned the screen toward me. There was a social media profile created just 3 months ago. The profile picture was unmistakably Riley, but different. Her hair was shorter, shaved on one side. She looked older, harder, but alive. The bio read, survived, thriving, living my truth in Boston. Art student at Miss Art, Boston? I whispered. She's in Boston. That night, I sent her a message. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. Riley, it's Meyer. I've been looking for you everywhere. I got into Juilliard. I'm in New York. Please tell me you're okay. Please tell me you remember. I never stopped loving you. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. Meyer, God, Meyer, I never stopped either. Can I call you? Her voice was the same. After 10 months of silence, hearing Riley say my name again made me cry so hard I couldn't breathe. I'm so sorry, she said, her own voice thick with tears. They took everything. My phone, my computer, my ability to contact the outside world. I couldn't reach you. I tried, but it's okay. You're out now. You're safe. Barely. The camp was. Meyer, it was hell. They tried to break us. Some people broke. But I kept thinking about you, about that gardening shed and your laugh, and the promise of our future. It kept me alive. We talked until sunrise, filling in the gaps of 10 last months. Riley told me about the camp, the psychological torture disguised as therapy. The day she finally turned 18 and walked out, she told me about her grandmother in Boston who took her in, supported her, helped her apply to art school. I told her about the fake conversion, the pretending, the acceptance to Juilliard that was both a dream come true and a dream deferred because she wasn't there to share it. I want to see you, I finally said. I need to see you. Boston to New York is 4 hours by train. I could be there by tomorrow afternoon. Meyer, your parents don't know I'm taking the train to Boston. As far as they're concerned, I'm settling into my dorm. There was a pause. Then Riley laughed. That beautiful, rough-edged laugh I'd miss so much. Meet me at South Station, 2 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be the one who can't stop smiling. I lied to my parents, told Ava I was visiting the Met Museum, and caught the 11 o'clock train to Boston. Every mile that brought me closer to Riley felt like coming back to life. She was waiting at the station exactly where she said she'd be, wearing a black leather jacket and ripped jeans, her hair catching the afternoon light. When our eyes met, everything else disappeared. We didn't speak. We just ran to each other. And when we collided, I thought my heart might burst from my chest. She held me like she was afraid I might vanish, and I held her back just as tightly. You're really here, she whispered into my hair. You're really here? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Riley pulled back just enough to look at me, her hands cradling my face. I love you, Maya Rodriguez. I loved you in that hallway, in the music room, in the gardening shed. I loved you through every terrible day in that camp. I love you now, and I'll love you for the rest of my life. I love you too, I said. And then I kissed her. It was different from our first kiss on the football field. That had been tentative, exploratory, full of wonder and fear. This was everything we'd survived pouring into a single moment. This was defiance and triumph and coming home. When we finally broke apart, Riley said, "Come on, I want to show you something." She took me to her grandmother's house, a small Victorian in a quiet neighborhood. Her grandmother, a woman with Riley's gray eyes and a warm smile, greeted us at the door. "So you're Meyer," she said. "I've heard so much about you. Riley talks about you constantly." "Grandma," Riley protested, blushing. "It's true. Come in, both of you." I made tea. We spent an hour with her grandmother, listening to stories about Riley's mother, looking at old photo albums. It was beautiful and bittersweet. This glimpse into the family history Riley had lost and found again. Then her grandmother said, "Why don't you girls go upstairs? Riley's been working on something in her room. I think she'd like to show you, Meyer." Riley led me up the narrow staircase to her room. It was small but bright, with large windows overlooking the street. The walls were covered in artwork, paintings, sketches, photographs, and every single piece was of me. Riley, I breathed, walking closer. There I was, playing violin, laughing, sleeping, staring at the stars. When did you, from memory, at the camp, when things got really dark, I'd close my eyes and picture you. Then when I got out, I started drawing. It was the only way I could process everything. By putting you on paper, by making you real again. I turned to her, tears streaming down my face. They're beautiful, you're beautiful. She crossed the room to me. Meyer, I know we've lost time. I know we have to figure out how to make this work with you in New York and me in Boston. But I need you to know that I'm not giving up on us. Not ever. I'm not giving up either. Riley reached past me and locked her bedroom door. The soft click echoed in the quiet room, and my heart stopped. I've waited 10 months to be alone with you, she said softly, her eyes searching mine. To hold you without fear of being caught. To tell you everything I've been holding inside. Is this okay? In answer, I pulled her close and kissed her. We stumbled back to her bed, a tangle of limbs and breathless laughter. And for the first time in almost a year, I felt whole. We lay together afterward, her head on my chest, my fingers running through her short hair. The afternoon light painted golden patterns on the walls, and everything felt perfect. I have an idea, I said suddenly. What if you transferred to an art school in New York? Or I could look into programs in Boston. We could make this work. Be in the same city. I've already looked into it. I could transfer to Pratt or SVA next semester. It would mean loans. But she propped herself up on her elbow to look at me. I'd do it for this. For us, your grandmother would understand. She wants me to be happy, and you make me happy. Meyer, you make me want to fight for a life that's mine, not the one anyone else planned for me. I returned to New York that night, my heart full and my mind spinning. Aver took one look at me and grinned. You found her, I found her, and it's real. It's always been real. Over the next few weeks, Riley and I talked every day. She applied for transfer to Pratt for the spring semester. I started looking into student loans and financial aid. We made plans and backup plans, dreamed impossible dreams that suddenly felt possible. But reality had other ideas. My mother showed up unannounced at my dorm in late October. She'd been checking my phone records, noticed the calls to a Boston number. She'd done some digging. You promised us, she said, her voice cold. You promised you'd changed. I did change. I learned to love myself. We're cutting you off. Meyer, no more tuition money. No more rent. You're on your own. Fine. She blinked, surprised. Fine. I'm 18. I'll get loans. I'll work. I'll figure it out. Because for the first time in my life, I'm free to be who I really am. And that's worth more than your money. My mother left without another word. When the door closed behind her, I called Riley. They cut me off. Oh, Meyer, it's okay. It's worth it. You're worth it. I'm transferring at semester end no matter what. We'll figure it out together. And we did. The reception was held in a small restaurant in Greenwich Village. The kind of place with exposed brick walls and string lights that made everything feel magical. Our friends had decorated it with flowers from the farmer's market, and someone's cousin DJ'd for free. Riley and I had our first dance to At Last by Etta James. She held me close, swaying gently, and whispered in my ear, Mrs. Rodriguez Chen, it has a nice ring to it. You're ridiculous, I said, laughing against her shoulder. Ridiculously in love with you. My mother approached us after the dance. She looked uncomfortable, her hands clutching her purse. But she was there. That meant something. Meyer, she said quietly, can we talk? Riley squeezed my hand before stepping away to give us privacy. Mom, let me finish. She took a deep breath. I was wrong. For years, I was wrong. I let my fear and my faith be used as weapons against you. And I'm sorry. Father Michael, he's been counseling your father and me, the new priest at our church. He helped us understand that love is love and that God doesn't make mistakes. Her eyes filled with tears. You're not a mistake, Major. You never were. And Riley, she makes you happy. I can see that now. I couldn't speak. After all these years of distance, of carefully worded phone calls and avoided topics, hearing her say those words broke something open inside me. I know I can't get back the time we lost, she continued. But if you let me, I'd like to try to really know you. And Riley, both of you. I hugged her then, crying into her shoulder like I was 12 years old again. I'd like that too, Mom. My father was harder. He sat at a table in the corner during the reception, barely speaking to anyone, his expression unreadable. But when Riley and I went to cut the cake, I saw him smile. Just a little, just enough. We couldn't afford a real honeymoon. Our budget stretched to cover the wedding and not much else. But Riley's grandmother surprised us with a gift, a week in her friend's cabin in Vermont. Every couple needs time alone after the wedding, she said, pressing the keys into Riley's hand. No arguments. Go rest. Be together. That's what matters. The cabin was perfect, small and rustic, surrounded by forest, with a lake so clear you could see straight to the bottom. We spent our days hiking and swimming, our nights cooking simple meals and talking for hours on the porch. On the third night, as we lay in bed listening to the crickets, Riley propped herself up on one elbow and looked at me seriously. I need to tell you something, she said. My heart skipped. What is it? I've been in therapy since I got out of that camp, working through everything that happened there. She paused, choosing her words carefully. My therapist says I have PTSD from the conversion therapy. There are triggers, sometimes locked doors, certain phrases, religious imagery. I have nightmares. Sometimes I wake up panicking, thinking I'm back there. Riley, I wanted to tell you before, but I was afraid you'd think I was broken, that I was too damaged to be a good partner. I pulled her close, my hand cradling her face. You are not broken. You survived something horrific, and you're still here, still fighting, still loving. That makes you the strongest person I know. Sometimes I don't feel strong. Sometimes I feel like that scared 17-year-old they locked away. Then, on those days, I'll be strong enough for both of us. That's what marriage means, right? We hold each other up when we're weak. She kissed me, and I tasted her tears, or mine. I couldn't tell. How did I get so lucky? We both got lucky, against all odds. That night, Riley told me everything about the conversion camp, the isolation, the forced prayers, the humiliation tactics designed to make her hate herself, the attempted exorcism that left her screaming for hours. The other kids, there's some who broke under the pressure, some who went along with it to survive, one who died by suicide 3 months after Riley left. I held her through it all, my own heart breaking for what she'd endured. And I understood, finally, why certain things set her off, why she sometimes flinched at religious language, why she needed the lights on when we slept, why she'd sometimes wake up gasping, needing to see my face to remember where she was. Thank you for trusting me with this, I said when she finished. Thank you for not running. I would never run. Not from you, not from us. Marriage was harder than I expected and better than I imagined. Often in the same day, I graduated from Juilliard in May and landed a position with a chamber ensemble. The pay was modest, but it was music-real, professional music. Riley finished at Pratt a semester later and started working at a graphic design firm in Manhattan. We were making it work. Barely. Student loans crushed us every month. Our apartment was still too small. The heating still unreliable. We ate a lot of pasta and learned to stretch every dollar. But we were happy. I came home one evening in November to find Riley sitting at our tiny kitchen table, staring at her laptop with an expression I couldn't read. What's wrong? I asked, setting down my violin case. My dad sent me an email. The first time he's contacted me in almost 6 years. My stomach dropped. What did he say? Riley turned the screen toward me. The email was short. Riley, your grandmother told me you got married. I won't pretend I understand your choices, but I've been thinking a lot about family lately, about what it means to be a father. I wasn't there when you needed me most, and I'm sorry for that. If you're willing, I'd like to meet your wife. I'd like to try to know you again. The real you. Dad, what do you think? Riley asked, her voice uncertain. What do I think? Or what do you think? Both. I sat down beside her, taking her hand. I think he hurt you deeply. I think he sent you to a place that traumatized you. And a 3-paragraph email doesn't undo that. But I also think, I paused, measuring my words. I think people can change. I watched my mother change. It took time, and it's still a process. But she's trying. Maybe your dad is ready to try too. And if he's not, if this is just him trying to fix me again, then we leave, and you don't have to see him again. You set the boundaries. Riley, whatever you need, I'm with you. She leaned her head on my shoulder. What if I want to try? Is that stupid? It's not stupid. It's brave. We arranged to meet Riley's father at a cafe in Brooklyn 2 weeks later. He looked older than I expected, grayer, more tired. When he saw Riley, something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or grief for the years he'd lost. Riley, he said, standing awkwardly. Thank you for coming. This is my wife, Meyer. Riley said, her hand finding mine under the table. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw him trying to see what his daughter saw in me, trying to understand the life she'd chosen. It's nice to meet you, Meyer. He extended his hand, and I shook it. The conversation was stilted at first. Small talk about weather and work, careful avoidance of anything meaningful. But then Riley's father took a deep breath and said, I need to apologize to both of you, but especially to you, Riley, what I did, sending you to that place. I thought I was saving you. I thought I was being a good father. Instead, I hurt you in ways I'm only beginning to understand. Riley's eyes filled with tears. Why now? Why after all this time? Your grandmother showed me some articles about conversion therapy, about the trauma it causes, the suicides, and I realized. His voice broke. I realized I almost lost you. Not just lost your presence in my life, but lost you permanently. And I couldn't live with that. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be fine, Riley said, her voice shaking. You broke something between us. You made me feel like I was fundamentally wrong, fundamentally unlovable. Do you know what that does to a person? No, but I want to understand. If you'll let me, Riley's relationship with her father didn't fix itself overnight. It was a slow process of small steps and setbacks, conversations that ended in tears, boundaries that had to be drawn and redrawn. But gradually, something shifted. He started coming to family dinners at my mother's house, awkward at first, but warming with time. He met Riley's therapist for a joint session, listened to what his choices had cost his daughter. He started reading books about LGBTQ+ issues, asking questions that were sometimes clumsy but always sincere. One day, about 8 months after that first cafe meeting, he showed up at our apartment with a cardboard box. What's this? Riley asked. Your mother's piano, the upright from the house. I've been keeping it in storage, but I think she'd want you to have it. I think she'd want you to play again. Riley stared at the box like it might explode. Dad, I can't. You can. You're stronger than you think. He looked at me. You both are. We spent the afternoon moving the piano into our apartment, a logistical nightmare given our lack of space. But we made it work. That evening, Riley sat down at the keys for the first time in almost 8 years. Her hands shook as she placed them on the ivory. She started playing Claire de Lune, the same piece I'd played for her that day in the music room. A lifetime ago, she stumbled through the first few measures, her muscle memory returning in fits and starts. But then something clicked, and the music poured out of her, beautiful and haunting and alive. I stood beside her, tears streaming down my face, watching her reclaim a piece of herself she thought was last forever. When she finished, she looked up at me and smiled. Want to play something together? I got my violin, and we played no sheet music, just improvising, finding a melody in the spaces between us. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect. 2 years into our marriage, on a Tuesday in March, I came home from rehearsal to find Riley on the bathroom floor, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Riley. I dropped to my knees beside her. What happened? What's wrong? I can't do this anymore. She gasped out between sobs. I'm so tired, Meyer. I'm so tired of being broken. You're not broken. Yes, I am. She looked at me with eyes that were drowning. I still have nightmares about that place. I still panic when someone mentions God, or church, or salvation. I flinch at locked doors. I can't even walk past a conversion therapy center without having a full-blown panic attack. When does it end? When do I get to just be normal? I pulled her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I could. Baby, listen to me. Trauma doesn't work on a schedule. Healing isn't linear. You're not broken, you're surviving something that would have destroyed most people. But I'm destroying us. I wake you up with my nightmares. I cancel plans because I'm too anxious to leave the apartment. I can't even go to your holiday concerts because they're in a church. What kind of wife does that make me? The kind I choose. The kind I'd choose again. 1,000 times over. I lifted her face to look at me. Riley, I didn't marry you thinking you'd be perfect. I married you knowing exactly who you are, drama and all, and I'm not going anywhere. But what if I don't get better? What if this is just who I am now? Then we adapt. We build a life that works for you, for us, and we keep going. Together, she clung to me, and I held her until the sobs subsided into hiccups, until her breathing evened out, until she fell asleep there on the bathroom floor, exhausted from her own emotions. I carried her to bed. She was so light it scared me and held her through the night. The next morning, I called her therapist and asked about intensive trauma therapy programs. She recommended a 6-week intensive PTSD treatment program in Massachusetts. 6 weeks? Riley said when I told her, Maya, we can't afford that, and your concerts. We'll figure out the money. We always do. And my concerts can wait. You can't. I don't want to be away from you for 6 weeks. I know, but this isn't about what we want. It's about what you need. I took her hands. Let me take care of you the way you've taken care of me. Let me be strong for us right now. She went to Massachusetts in April. Those 6 weeks were the longest of my life. I visited every weekend, driving for hours each way. But it wasn't the same as having her beside me every night. But when she came home, something had shifted. She looked lighter somehow, more present. It's not cured. She told me that first night back. The trauma is still there, but I have tools now, ways to cope when it gets bad, and I understand it better why certain things trigger me. How to work through it instead of just drowning in it. I'm so proud of you, I said. I couldn't have done it without you, without knowing you were waiting for me to come home. Riley's experience in the trauma program changed something fundamental in her. She'd spent years surviving her trauma privately, managing it alone, but now she wanted to do something more. I want to help other survivors. She told me one night over dinner, kids who went through what I did, people who are still trying to figure out how to live with what was done to them. How? I don't know yet. But there has to be something. She started small, a blog where she wrote about her experiences in conversion therapy, the trauma that followed, the long road to recovery. She used her design skills to make it beautiful and accessible, filled it with resources for other survivors. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people all over the country, teenagers whose parents were threatening to send them to camps, adults still struggling with trauma from decades ago, families trying to understand what their loved ones had been through. Riley answered every single message. She created resource lists, connected survivors with therapists who specialized in religious trauma and LGBTQ+ issues, built an online support community. Within a year, her blog had evolved into a nonprofit organization, the Second Chance Project, dedicated to supporting conversion therapy survivors and advocating for legislation to ban the practice. I watched her bloom into this role, using her pain to create something meaningful. She testified before state legislatures, sharing her story to push for bans on conversion therapy. She organized fundraisers and support groups. She became a voice for people who'd been silenced, One evening, after a particularly grueling day of advocacy work, she came home exhausted and collapsed on the couch beside me. "Tell me this matters," she said. "Tell me I'm making a difference. You saved 3 kids from being sent to camps this month alone." I reminded her. "You connected 40 survivors with therapists. You helped pass legislation into states. Riley, you're not just making a difference, you're changing lives. But there are still so many camps operating, so many kids being hurt right now, and you can't save all of them. But the ones you do save, their lives are completely different because of you. That has to be enough." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "When did you get so wise? I married you. That automatically made me smarter." She laughed, and I felt her relax against me. "I love you, Maya Rodriguez Chen. I love you too. Now stop trying to save the world for one night and let me make you dinner." That year, Riley was invited to speak at a national LGBTQ youth conference in Washington, D.C. I went with her, sat in the audience as she stood on that stage, and told her story, all of it, the pain and the survival and the healing to 3,000 people. When she finished, the entire auditorium rose to their feet. The applause went on for 5 minutes straight. Teenagers were crying. Adults were crying. I was definitely crying. Afterward, a line of people waited to talk to her, young people mostly, thanking her for her courage, for giving them hope, for making them feel less alone. One girl, maybe 16, said, "My parents want to send me to a camp. I'm so scared, but hearing you speak, it made me realize I can survive this, that there's life after." Riley hugged her, exchanged contact information, connected her with resources. When the girl walked away, Riley turned to me with tears streaming down her face. "This is why," she said. "This is why it all mattered." It's been 10 years since that day in the hallway at Sacred Heart Academy. 10 years since I saw Riley for the first time and felt my world shift. We're 30 now. We own a small house in Queens, nothing fancy, but it's ours. Riley's nonprofit has expanded to 7 states. I'm first violin in a prestigious chamber ensemble and teach music on the side. My parents visit once a month. My mother and Riley have developed their own relationship, bonding over gardening and a shared love of terrible reality TV. My father is slower to warm, but he shows up. He tries. That's all we can ask. Riley's father comes to every fundraiser, every speaking event. He wears a Second Chance Project t-shirt and tells anyone who'll listen about his daughter's work. It's his way of apologizing, of making amends. Riley's accepted it. Madison is married now, with a baby on the way. We're not close like we were, but we're friends. Real friends who've worked through our complicated history. Riley's grandmother passed away 2 years ago. At her funeral, Riley played piano. Claire de Lune, of course. I played violin beside her. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. A goodbye and a thank you all at once. We talk sometimes about having kids. Maybe adoption, maybe foster care. We're not there yet, but we're thinking about it. Building a family of our own. One where kids never have to hide who they are. Last week, on the anniversary of our wedding, Riley took me back to that locked gardening shed at Sacred Heart Academy. The school had closed down 3 years ago, but the grounds were still accessible. "Remember?" she said, pushing open the door. Someone had turned it into a storage unit, but the bones were the same. "Every moment," I replied. "I remember being terrified and exhilarated and so desperately in love with you. I remember thinking that if loving you was wrong, I'd rather be wrong than right." We stood there in that shed where we'd hidden our love, where we'd stolen moments between terror and joy, and it felt full circle somehow. We'd been so young then, so scared. And look at us now, no more locked doors, Riley said softly. "No more hiding, no more hiding." I agreed. She pulled me close and kissed me, and it felt like every kiss we'd ever shared, that first one on the football field. Desperate kisses in secret places. The kiss at our wedding, exhausted kisses after long days, comfort kisses through hard times. "Thank you," she whispered against my lips. "For what?" "For seeing me that day in the hallway, for staying, for choosing me every single day since. thank you for being worth choosing. We stood there as the sunset. To women who'd survived everything thrown at them, who'd built a life from broken pieces, who'd turned pain into purpose and secrecy into advocacy. Our love story started with a locked door and a racing heart. It continued through separation and trauma and small victories. And it continues still, every day, in the ordinary moments that make up a life, morning coffee and shared laughter, hard conversations and fierce support, piano and violin harmonizing in our living room. We were forbidden once. Now we're free. And that freedom, fought for and hard won, is the greatest love story of all. The tiny apartment in Brooklyn wasn't mucher. Studio with a view of a brick wall and radiators that clang all night, but it was ours. I'd just finished -1 junior year at Juilliard. Riley had one more semester left at Pratt. We worked multiple jobs between classes, lived on ramen and coffee, fell asleep exhausted every night tangled together, our secondhand mattress. It was hard, it was messy, but it was real. My parents and I had started speaking again, slowly. They came to one of my performances, sat in the back, left before I could talk to them. But they came. It was progress. Riley's dad had cut her off completely, but her grandmother visited once a month, always bringing homemade cookies and stories about Riley's mother. Madison reached out to apologize again, for real this time. She'd done some soul searching, talked to a therapist about her own internalized issues. We weren't best friends anymore, but we'd found a tentative peace. Do you ever regret it? Riley asked one night as we lay on the roof of our building, watching the city lights. Everything we gave up to be together? I thought about it, really thought about it. The family tensions, the financial struggles, the years of hiding and fear. Not for a second, I said honestly, because I got you. I got this life, where I can hold your hand in public and kiss you goodnight and not have to pretend. That's everything. She turned to me, her gray eyes serious. Marry me? What? Not now. Not until we graduate and get real jobs and can afford more than a man. But someday, Maya Rodriguez, will you marry me? I kissed her instead of answering, poured 3 years of love and struggle and triumph into it. When we broke apart, I whispered against her lips, yes, 1,000 times yes. 5 years after that conversation, we stood in front of our friends and family in a small ceremony in Central Park. My parents were there, sitting stiffly beside Riley's grandmother, trying. Riley's father wasn't there, but we'd stopped waiting for him to come round. Madison was my maid of honor. Ava played viola during the ceremony. Our Juilliard and Pratt friends filled the seats, cheering when we said I do. As we walked back down the aisle together, Riley squeezed my hand and whispered, remember that gardening shed? Every detail. Remember how scared we were? Every moment. Look at us now. I stopped, turned to face her. This woman who'd been worth every sacrifice, every hardship, every locked door and racing heart. Look at us now. I agreed. And then, in front of everyone who mattered, I kissed my wife.